So continuing with the day two, we have this agenda for vulnerability management, log management, and threat intelligence. We'll be discussing about these. Very first one is vulnerability management. See, when we are talking about vulnerability management, okay, it's kind of a, you will hear two words: vulnerability assessment. Along with that, you will hear vulnerability management also. One is vulnerability assessment. In the next slide, it might be there. Vulnerability management is a complete movie. Okay, there are two terms which are related but not the same. Management is an ongoing process which will include not just identifying the vulnerabilities but also prioritizing it. Okay, we have to prioritize the vulnerabilities so that we can take course of actions against them, right? Which vulnerability is more dangerous, that's quite obvious. So we identify, we prioritize, we remediate, we verify as well, right? And then we continuously monitor the same. Okay, that happens in vulnerability management. It's an ongoing process. That's what I'm saying. It's a complete movie. Whereas if I'm talking about vulnerability assessment, it's a one-time activity where you can scan and identify the weaknesses or the security vulnerabilities in your system. That is what happens in vulnerability assessment. Okay, so for example, if I'm talking about vulnerability assessment, I'm saying, okay, I'm scanning a web application with a tool like Qualys or Nessus or OpenVAS and find out 30 vulnerabilities. So that scan is the assessment. Make sense? Whereas if I talk about vulnerability management, then company performs monthly scans, logs vulnerabilities in a tracking system, assign them to the appropriate team, patches the critical ones, retest it, and monitor things over the time. So that is your end-to-end process in vulnerability management. Okay, so assessment would be like we are finding issues. In vulnerability management, our objective would be like we are reducing a risk over time. So it's not just scanning, which is used in the vulnerability assessment. It is also about ticketing, reporting, prioritizing, fixing things. So it's a continuous approach. Vulnerability assessment would be like a one-time or a periodic assessment, but management is a continuous approach. Okay, so in vulnerability assessment, we list out the vulnerabilities, whereas in vulnerability management, we reduce the risk, okay, and we update our environment in a secure manner. So in vulnerability assessment, the key thing, so it's a systematic process as we were talking about of identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing. It's a management part, whereas in assessment we will just scan it and we'll try to identify what all weaknesses are there. So when you talk about vulnerability assessment, you get CVEs over there. CVE. It is written like this. No, okay. CV stands for common vulnerability and exposures. Okay, common vulnerability and exposures. So when we are talking about CV, okay, vulnerability assessment. Okay, we'll identify what all vulnerabilities are present. We'll try to analyze if there is any root cause, and as per that, prioritization are done because on the basis of vulnerabilities. So CV, when I'm talking about CV, it is nothing but just the vulnerabilities which are list out. Okay, so vulnerability which has been identified out in the world or which are publicly, you can say, disclosed. So in CV, we keep a list of those vulnerabilities. Okay, so for example, MITRE is there. If you heard about it, it keeps a record of that, like a database, you can say, which keeps a list of publicly disclosed vulnerabilities or weakness of flaws. So CV is nothing; it's just an identifier system for known vulnerabilities. So wherever there is a vulnerability, let's suppose like this, it is written in this way. Okay, this is like in pattern of it. CV, the year it was identified, and the ID, unique ID of it. So wherever the CVs are listed, okay, in the website, so it has a unique ID, okay, which represent that this is a CV. Unique ID for every vulnerability, unique ID will be there. A description of that vulnerability, and also sometimes the references to tools or patches. So it is managed by a MITRE corporation and sponsored by the US Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so there are a lot of CVs listed, so you can always look out for the, like for example, CV 2021 34527. So nickname for this CV is Print Nightmare. So it's a remote code execution vulnerability in the Windows print spooler service. So it allowed the attackers to execute code remotely on unpatched Windows services. You can get that. SN, you can get that. But MITRE is the one which maintains the list of it. Okay. Yeah. So CV has a format. The format looks like this, as I mentioned over here. CVE Y as in the year it was identified, and hash hash hash. At least 4-digit number will be there, like an ID for it. Okay. So since a lot of vulnerabilities are being explored out, so you keep this number keeps on increasing. All right. So that is what happens in this one vulnerability assessment. We try to identify these CVs, and those CVs also has some severity. Every country might be put that on their website, but there's one single which takes care of entire things. That's why one thing has taken the copyright, you can say, or entire takeover of it. CVSS is also there, just to let you know. That is known as a common vulnerability scoring system. It helps us to identify what is the severity of that particular vulnerability. So we have a table in which CVSS is also there. Like it tells you the severity. So we can say base and score as per that. If the CV is rated zero point 0.0, there's no, or I mean to say severity would be this one. This represents severity, how severe that vulnerability is. So none. If it's from zero point 0.1 to 3.9, the vulnerability severity is low. If it's 4.0 to 6.9, it is medium. 7.0 to 8.9, it is high. And 9.0 to 10.0, that is your critical. So scanners scans for the vulnerabilities and tells you CVE. Along with that, CVSS is also calculated for the same. Okay, that is a vulnerability scoring system, common vulnerability scoring system. All right. So low, medium, high, and critical is there. So obviously, the critical one will be having the severe risk, which might be easily exploitable with major impact on the system or the data. Clear? So that is what vulnerability assessment is all about. So it's like you're doing the home inspection, okay, and the inspector finds cracks, broken locks, faulty wiring. So not everything is dangerous right now, but some things could become major problems. Okay, so you're told what to fix first, like a gas leak over a loose cabinet handle, because gas leak is quite important to be done first. So that's what helps your vulnerability assessment for your IT infra. Okay, we try to look out for the on the ones which are having a lot of severity. We try to fix it first. Quite obvious, right? So we identify the vulnerabilities, right? Scanners are used. They look out for the uh, any unpatched software, any default password kind of a flaw, any open ports over there, any misconfiguration. So we look out for these things. Then analysis is done later. We determine how serious the issue is. We check the asset value, exploitability, and the exposure as well, right? So for example, see, we do the analysis. If also like in terms of assessment, we try to assess which risk is of higher value, right? So that we can resolve it first. We're going to talk about this later. Okay, so we prioritize the things based on the CVSS score, the business it will impact, the likelihood of exploitation. Then we go for the remediation as well. We fix the issue, like applying patches, changing configuration, monitoring. We are enhancing it, removing any unused services. That way. Also, why it matters? Why does vulnerability? Why does it matter? That is an important thing, right? So the why question, it's quite important. Why? It prevents breaches by closing any known security gaps, right? So it's the same. In the same way, right? If I say, um, in your house there was a crack on a window, or your window is broken, you'll try to fix it. Why? Because chances are attacker might be taken advantage of it, and thief would enter. We need to fix those things before someone can take an advantage of that, right? Similarly over here, prevent breaches by closing known security gaps. Okay, so most cyber attacks, they exploit the known vulnerabilities, not any secret 0 days. If you're scanning regularly and remediating those flaws, you're slamming the door shut before attackers can get in. So for example, if there is any unpatched Apache server with a directory traversal, a bug, that vulnerability is there where attacker can move from one directory to another directory to another directory. Okay, so it was widely exploited after a fix had already been released. A fix was already released, but still it was exploited because organization didn't use that fix. So organization who ran the vulnerability assessment, they caught that security gap and they fixed it. Others got breached. Fix was already out, but organization still didn't use that patch or that fix. So those who were not aware about it, those who were not performing vulnerability assessment regularly, they were still vulnerable to that exploit and they got attacked. Whereas those who were performing vulnerability assessment, they know that there was a vulnerability present in their Apache server and they fixed it. Okay. It saved cost by avoiding exploitation related damage. Absolutely. See, preventive maintenance is cheaper than the repair, isn't it? Preventive maintenance is cheaper than repair. If a gas pipe is leaking, for example, okay, if gas pipe is leaking, you fix it before it can do a blast, because that will cost you a lot. So just to give an idea, the average data breach can cost millions in incident response, downtime, legal fees, reputation damage, and so much more. There was this company, if you have heard about it, in 2017, Equifax. Equifax, it is E. This is E. Equifax breach was there on 2017. Guys, this was happened due to a missed patch. They missed a patch in Apache struts. They missed a patch, that company. And that caused them, because exploitation happened, that caused them 700 plus million dollars. If they would have done the assessment properly, that means if they would have taken a vulnerability assessment tool, properly use it. So cost of a vulnerability assessment tool license would be few $1,000s per year. If they would have utilized it, they wouldn't have faced the 700 plus $1 million. See, security does not generate a revenue like by selling a product. It's not like the same way. You have invested your money in buying firewall, in buying antivirus. Yes. Will it uh, be sold out? No, it does not generate the revenue in that way. Organization calculates its value, its KRI, KPIs, and its ROI in the terms of how many attacks it has blocked, how many breaches it has blocked, it has helped the organization to. That's how its value is calculated. Because one breach can cost you a lot of amount of money, right? So security is useful in that perspective. See, there are a lot of scenarios, not scenarios, like I would say, if A and B company is there, okay, they are earning. Let's suppose their e-commerce website, for example, and first month both of them earned $1,000. Let's suppose, okay. After that, A got to know, okay, there is some vulnerabilities in his web application. He invested money in order to secure it. So obviously he invested some money. Maybe some process might got slowed down or something. Not much, a bit of a thing. And after that, he's earning, let's suppose, $750 per month. But B didn't use any security. B is still using and earning $1,000. Now, if you see from the short-term perspective, A is facing a lot of loss in terms of money. Definitely, yes. And B is earning good. But if you see the long term, one attack on B, everything is gone. But A still survives and it will still keep on earning 750. Make sense? How security is important? Yeah, clear with this? So that is thing. You know? Perfect. So save costs by avoiding exploitation related damage. A key requirement for security compliance and audits. Yes, you do not just need to be secure, you need to prove it as well, guys. So most regulatory frameworks are there which require evidence of vulnerability scans and remediations. So PCI DSS is there, HIPAA, ISO 27001, NIST 80053, these are there. Okay, so they require these things as a proof. So that's why vulnerability assessment is matter. It means a lot. It matters. Otherwise, you'll pay some fines and consequences. It also prepares organization for penetration testing by eliminating low hanging fruit. Yes, it's like you're fixing the easy stuff before the real test. So penetration testing is like a stress test of your defense. But it's a waste of money if it uncovers things that could have been fixed by a simple scan, isn't it? So why let a pen tester find default passwords or outdated plugins? What's the point? These are low hanging fruits, right? These are low hanging fruit you should fix before the test, before the pen test, which can be covered in your vulnerability assessment. Correct? Isn't it? So for example, it might be lame. It's like, would you go to a job interview without ironing your shirt, right? So run a vulnerability scan first. It's the digital equivalent. Make sense? And builds a culture of continuous security improvement. 100%, guys. Security is a journey, not a destination, right? So by scheduling regular assessment, you embed security into your organization's DNA, you can say. So you encourage proactive patching, you keep IT and security teams aligned, you make security measurable and trackable. Then types of vulnerability assessment and their focus areas, yes. So vulnerability assessment are not one size fits all. Okay. Different parts of your infrastructure have different weaknesses. So we use specialized assessments to find them. So we have cloud vulnerability assessment. Okay. Focus areas are your data exposure, API security flaws, right? Data exposure like S3 buckets or Azure blobs open to the internet. API security flaws are like lack of authentication, rate limiting, or input validation in that way, right? So think of cloud assessment like checking if the window in your skyscraper are sealed, even the ones on the 50th floor. If data is exposed, it's as good as being on the street, right? So that's why. Wireless network vulnerability systems also there. We look out for the weak encryption, rogue access point, the malicious access point. Okay. When you open the hotspot or buy a router or a router, have you seen something written like this? WEP, WPA. WPA2, WPA3. Even if you open the hotspot in a mobile phone, you will see these things over there. So latest one is WPA3, just to let you know, and yes, it is a stronger. So kindly, whenever you buy the router, make sure it is WPA3. WPA2 is crackable, widely used still, but yeah, WPA3 would be more preferable. Yeah. So these are encryption. If you are still using any router, anything which is WPA, it is crackable. WPA2 also. Anyone can guess, crack the password, and they can get the access to the Wi-Fi. And rogue access points are also there. Yes, malicious access point. These are unauthorized Wi-Fi devices inside the organization. So attacker they set up the rogue access point, okay, near your office. So employees connect to it, and their traffic is now sniffed. Attacker will be able to see their traffic. They will be able to see what you are doing, what you are not doing, where you are visiting the website, and he can take an advantage of the data over there. Network vulnerability assessment is also there. So if there's any misconfiguration, any weak access controls present over there, that is also part of assessment. Okay. So any misconfiguration, as in any unused open ports, any weak firewall rules, weak access point would be there. Any open SMB shares, if you are having exposed telnet or FTP. So any internal scan can find, for example, RDP, remote desktop protocol, open on 100 plus devices with some default credential. That is dangerous. So this is like you're testing the locks and windows of every room in a building, not just the front door. You have to look out for everything. Host base is there, which is for configuration level check. Just always remember this. So focus areas are missing patches, operating system or software vulnerabilities, maybe not yet fixed, right? Insecure configuration, maybe any weak registry settings, unencrypted disk, or any unnecessary services running over there, right? So for example, that example I was giving of CV print nightmare. So if any Windows 10 host has not applied a patch for print nightmare, so an attacker can escalate the privilege. They can become from a normal user, they can become the admin user, administrator. That can be also done, right? Then application vulnerability assessments are there for SQL injection, cross-site scripting. So we have web applications. Okay, it's visible now. Yeah, perfect. So you can see if I click on sign in, let's see. See, if I click admin and admin, it logged me in into says hello admin user. Normal way, normal process, fine. But if I log out, try to log in again, and if I write something like this and copy this and paste it in the password, does this thing looks like a legitimate username or password? Does it look like that? No, right? But if we log in into this, click on login, it logged me into the same admin user page. Hello admin user. This is an SQL injection which is used to bypass the authentication. One way. SQL injection is nothing, it is just a kind of an attack, web application based attack, where we interact and manipulate the database where all the records are kept. Okay. For scripting, if I talk about, there might be a script. See, there's one already. If I click on go, this pop-up appears to be from testfire.net, which is the original domain name. And that pop-up is given by me, hacker here. I can give anything else also. Enter your password. The point is, what if these pop-ups are being displayed to you, and when you enter the password, those passwords are going to the attacker? It will be a lot more dangerous, right? And that is your cross-site scripting. Okay, so we look out for the application-based assessments, all also done. Database vulnerability assessment, weak access control, encryption flaws are also checked for that. So weak access control would be the one where database accepting any user without any strict rules. And encryption flaws will be there. That means an unencrypted data is there in your database, whether it is while it is moving in the network or whether it is resting in the database. That is also a flaw because anyone will be able to read your data. So encryption is very important. Encryption helps you to hide or secure your data from any unauthorized person. So let's suppose if I am sending any data to, let's suppose, Arjun. I'm saying sending hello to Arjun, right? So that is encrypted. We discussed about it. It goes in an encrypted format. It will be logged with a key so that in case if someone in between tries to access our data, he or she won't be able to see it because he or she does not have the key which is used to unlock that encryption. So Arjun has the key, so Arjun will use the key to decrypt it, and Arjun will be able to read the data. Okay, so that's why you might have read this thing when you use WhatsApp. I might have told you this before. When you start the conversation, end-to-end encryption is written over there, right? End-to-end encryption. That is a secure data. That means only Arjun and I can see that data when we are uh, messaging each other. Only we can see that data. Nobody else can see that data in between. So even when your data is stored in database, not only just it is traveling in network, when it is stored in the database, it should be encrypted for the security perspective. So when you're doing database vulnerability assessment, you can look out for these things like weak access controls, encryption flaws, all of these things. Clear so far? Yeah, as in there is also encryption. Yes, keys are involved over there when the handshakes are happening. Okay, so vulnerability management life cycle, guys, as I was talking about the initial slide, that was for vulnerability management life cycle, where we have pre-assessment phase, we have vulnerability assessment phase, and we have post-assessment phase as well. Pre-assessment is here we identify what all assets we have, and we establish a baseline, minimum level of security for them. That this minimum amount of security should be there. So we identify what all assets we do have in the organization. Now on those assets, we'll perform vulnerability assessment. We'll perform the scan. We'll try to identify what all CVs and CVSS are there along with those vulnerabilities. Then we go for the post-assessment phase where we look out for the risk assessment. We calculate the risk, how much risk the organization has as per that vulnerability. So see, for example, if there is a vulnerability, okay, I'll give you a situation. You have external server and you have internal server, and there is a vulnerability which is having CVSS score of 9 on external and the same vulnerability is there in the internal server. Which one will you fix first or which one will you prioritize? So those are thinking about the internal one. You're thinking on the correct basis because you know internal server will be of more criticality. That is true. That is true. But think about it. Which one is exposed to everyone? Internal is not exposed to everyone. So the likelihood, again I'm talking about because we are talking about risk factor. The likelihood, the chances of getting exploit is to external as compared to internal. Clear? So likelihood is also looked out for. CVS is definitely is severity is there both the ways, but we look out for the likelihood and the impact as well. Since external is quite open for everyone, anyone can do that. So we have to fix it. Internal is like still safe. Likelihood is quite less. So with that's the reason I told you that gave this example because risk assessment is done. Okay, we assess the impact and probability of vulnerabilities causing breaches. Okay, as per that we go with the remediation, as in fix, applying patches. We address and mitigate the identified vulnerabilities. After that, we go for the verification. See what happens after the remediation. Sorry, after the remediation, we perform the vulnerability assessment once again. Yes, to check whether that vulnerability was completely remediated or not. Right? Okay, so we got to know that there is a vulnerability over here. We fixed it. We perform once more. The scanning is done or the assessment is done once more to see whether that vulnerability was removed or not, or is it still there. Then finally, we go for the continuous monitoring, continuous check for new or existing vulnerabilities. So this is the life cycle of your vulnerability management. Good one. Which of the following best describes the purpose of a vulnerability assessment in the cybersecurity context? To identify, classify, and prioritize weakness in the system. The answer is B. Good job. Another one. So it will be post assessment, right? Third one involves misconfiguration. I told you configuration level check is done. That is done on your host based assessment, guys. Host based. Question fourth is there. You perform a vulnerability assessment and discover that many internal systems are running outdated version of Apache HTTP server. Some are missing patches older than 1 year. How would you prioritize remediation and what tools or logic would you use? Just this is like conceptual ways. You can share your inputs, your ideas, whatever pops up in your mind. It is there is no to be afraid of. Try to give the answers. First is how would you prioritize remediation? Tools will go later. So we will do what? Um, Absolutely. We will use CVSS scores, correct? Plus asset criticality also will be checked, isn't it? Because depends on the asset which is having that vulnerability, right? Because asset are like, okay, for example, let's suppose CEO is there, your receptionist is also there. Both of them are using MacBook. Okay, same configuration, same price, same everything. But which one will be of more value? CEO one, quite obvious, right? So asset criticality is looked out for. We look out for the critical assets also, and they are also referred as crown jewels, guys. Crown jewels, just like jewelry of the king and queens. They were of high value. So in that way, so crown jewels will look out for that. So obviously, what I'm trying to say is we'll look out for the CVSs and the asset criticality over here. Okay, if the outdated Apache, if the outdated Apache runs on a maybe like maybe like public facing server also, we patch it immediately because that's a high risk, right? I'm just giving an example. So that is what we will do, and then obviously we'll use the vulnerability management tool as well. Okay, after assessment we look out for the vulnerability management tool, which will be like, for example, Qualys or Nessus can be used over here to verify the patch levels. So just like think of it like a doctor treating injuries. So you prioritize based on the severity plus location. So paper cut on a finger can wait, but if you have a gash near an artery, it needs urgent care, isn't it? So that one more. Good job. A junior analyst suggests scanning all systems weekly regardless of their sensitivity. You disagree. Why is tailoring scan frequently important in vulnerability management? Why is tailoring scan frequency? Scan frequency we're talking about important in vulnerability management. Here the question is asking that why tailoring, as in why scheduling scan frequency is important in vulnerability management. It's not like you should scan regularly on a daily basis. That's what I'm asking. But why you are disagreeing that weekly we should scan it? The question is also there, no? Junior analysts suggest scanning all systems weekly regardless of their sensitivity. He's also ignoring that fact of sensitivity. You disagree. So you are saying why? The question is why tailoring or scheduling scan frequency important in vulnerability management. Resource limitation, yeah, good one. Okay. Degradation will be there. Performance degradation. I read somewhere risk based also. Priority, yeah, budget practice can may impact the system performance. Yes, as in exactly. Time consuming, risk based approach. Yes, Arjun, that is also correct, correct, correct. See, if I give an example, you do not take your car to a mechanic every day. You do regular checks based on critical part, how critical the part is, right? Like engine versus wipers, if we talk about, if wiper is at fault, if things like feel like wiper is fault, you won't go to the mechanic immediately. Yeah, if the engine is faulty, seems like something is there, then you go for that immediately. Exactly. Risk based approach, prioritization, effectiveness. Yes, yes, good one. So that is true. See, running weekly scans on all system, it sounds good, sounds thorough, but it is not efficient or strategic. If we talk about, different systems have different level of risk, criticality, and exposure. Here it is doing that regardless of the sensitivity, the junior analyst, right? So scanning strategy should reflect that. So you need to tailor the scan frequency, that is good, but that needs to done on the basis of risk based prioritization. Yes, Vamsi, yes. So risk based prioritization is also there. See, not all assets are equal, right? So some systems are very critical and others are internal or at low risk. So scanning everything equally wastes our resources, as you guys have mentioned, time, and delay our remediations of real threats. And it will also have our operational impact, right? So frequent scans on production systems like databases or web servers can slow them down or cause some performance issues. And yes, as you guys have mentioned, resource optimization, 100%, right? Scanning everything, obviously weekly, it will uses up scanner's bandwidth, storage, and analyst time as well. So it's better to focus the limited resources on high risk system more often, right? Which are of high risk. Quite obvious. What is log management? So log management is nothing, it's just the collection, storage, organization, and analysis of log data. It is collection of logs, obviously, storage, organization, and analysis analysis of log data, which are generated by systems or networks or applications and security tools. So think of it like CCTV footage for your digital infrastructure. So if something goes wrong, like any hack or any crash or misconfiguration, so you rewind the logs to see what happened, when it happened, and how it happened. Right? So log sources. Um, okay, just a bit more. I guess I can explain this a bit more, not to leave it this way. Some important things are there when we talk about in terms of log management, log generation. Key components I'm talking about. Log generation is there. Logs are created by various components like operating system. In operating system, you have syslog for that, or if you see in search, you have event viewer in your Windows. Event viewer in your Windows. Firewall logs are there. right? Connection attempts, those things are included over there. In web server, any access or error logs are there, right? Authentication attempts are there. Login attempts, login failure attempts, application based logs are also there. Again, you can find the same thing in your event viewer also. Any transaction logs, any user activity logs. So log generations are quite important. This can be, can be created by various components. So log generation and then log collection. Log collection is also there. So we use agents or collectors are there, we call them. They are used to pull the logs from different sources and send them to a central server, which is, anyone wants to guess it? SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. This SIM solution is your heart you can say, of your SOC, Security Operations Center's heart. Because SOC is what? It's a centralized unit, right? Business unit where we monitor all the logs. The SIM is there. So what happens? The logs are collected from different sources, and then they are sent to the SIM by these agents or collectors. Okay. Then another one is there. The key components are log storage as well, or retention we can say, and retention. See, logs needs to be stored securely. First of all, they need to be stored securely. Encrypted access control should be there. It should be efficient, like indexed for searches properly, and due to the compliance reasons also. Okay, with like PCI says like there should be 1 year of retention. For that, logs need to be stored and retentions are there. Also, not just that. To be very honest, one more reasons can also be there. I might have told you this before. It helps us to identify what is the normal behavior. Yeah, I told you this before. Yeah, help us to identify what is the normal behavior, so that we can identify if anything goes beyond that, something fishy is going on. Yeah, baseline also. Yeah. Then apart from these, we have log normalization. Anyone knows what does this mean? Normalization and parsing. PARSING. Different system, they use different log formats. Different sources uses different log formats. Normalization converts these into a consistent structure. Like for example, a common structure you can say, JSON format, which makes it easier to analyze. So we're giving one standardized format. Yes, Arjun, exactly. Good one. Then further we perform the analysis, analyze the logs. Like we can analyze those things in your SIM tools, SIM solution like Splunk or IBM QRadar, in those places, right? So if you're seeing, for example, too many failed login attempts, so that might be possible. There is a brute force attack. Someone is trying to crack your password. If any admin login has been identified 3 a.m., that too from foreign IP, possibly compromised credentials, or any critical service stopped unexpectedly. Maybe it might be a malware. Right? So these things are there. That's why log management is quite important, helpful in terms of incident detection, forensic analysis, audit and compliance, performance monitoring, you know, behavior profiling, understand what is normal, understand what is abnormal, that way. Then we have what is log source. What are log source? So log source are system, devices, or application that generate logs, as I just discussed. A record of events, activities, or changes happening within an environment. Each log captures important security related Relevant details like login attempts, file access, configuration changes, network traffic, or system errors. 100%. So log sources are nothing. These are just, as we just discussed, are the system devices or application that generate logs, which are record of events, activities, or any changes over there. Okay. So logs tells us the story of what happened inside our environment, IT environment. So every login, error, file change, or network connection, they can be logged somewhere. For file change, file manipulation, we check for the integrity checks, integrity logs. So these things are there. So logs are important. They're quite important. And types of logs, as we just discussed, we have server logs, system logs, security logs, network logs, application log, audit logs. Different type of logs are there. So system logs are there, generated by the system, obviously. Logs from the operating system. Any when your system is startup, shut down, any kernel events. Okay. So in event viewer of Windows, you can see this event viewer. And if you want to look out for Linux, in Linux you see it inside your var log syslog. There you can find these things. Or var log messages also. I'm giving you the directories. In Windows you can simply look out for the event viewer and you will get it over there. Security logs are also there, which are related to security operations. Like maybe if there is any authentication failure, guys, that can be also helpful. Can you see this event viewer? Security log, application log, system logs. See, 4624 is there. Log on, as in successful login. 4625 denotes failure. If there was any failed login attempt, it would have shown you 4625. And they have also multiple different types in that. If you want, you can connect with me personally for the same, and I might provide you something valuable. Something valuable as in uh, Windows Event Logs PDF. It gives you very detail about it for every log. See, these logs are very important from SOC's perspective, from defensive point of view. Every log has a story to tell, and you should know which are the critical logs. How can I move this? Okay. Here, 4:4. See, a log on to a system has occurred. It has different types also. Type 2 indicates an interactive, usually local logon. This type 3 indicates a remote or network login. So it has certain types. Every type has a story. 4624. If you double click on it, it tells you the types also. See, log on type 5 and so on. So if you want, I can share this PDF with you. So you might have to connect with me over the LinkedIn, and I will be trying to share it with you in case if you want. Will be quite beneficial in your security journey. Okay, getting back to the points. Network logs again. So network activity usually from the routers, firewalls, IDS, IPS, or switches. Okay, so you have tools like pfSense, Cisco logs, Suricata, Snort. They can be helpful in terms of detecting any scanning, any unauthorized connection. Application logs, 100% logs which are created by customer third-party applications regarding a web applications, payment platforms, CRM. So your Apache Access error logs, your Tomcat logs, like that. So it can be helpful basically for your debugging, identifying user behavior, spotting an injection attempt like SQL injection, those ways. Audit logs, uh, it is used to track for the user's actions, like what was changed, by whom, and when it was changed, right? So you can look out for the admin panel actions, database updates, policy changes with the help of it. So it is quite useful for compliances like GDPR, PCI DSS, and it is non-repetition. You cannot deny, and you can also detect any insider threat using them. Okay, quick bits. Anyone who could try to answer these questions? Which of the following is the log source most helpful in detecting brute force login attempt? Brute force is a password-based attacks. Okay, in short, yeah, authentication logs. Correct. So authentication logs captures your authentication, guys. Authentication. Brute force. When we talk about brute force login attempts, login they see they have dropped the hint. So it means someone is trying to authenticate, right? So login attempts, authentication logs will be having those login attempts, successful or failed, usernames, timestamps, source IP address, and everything. DNS log shows which domains were asked or queried by the system or users. It is useful for detecting malware, making a command and control channel, or beaconing or data exfiltration via DNS. It does not have the login attempts. It does not record that. File integrity logs will be for tracking the changes. Oh, I want. let's let's go to the next question. Because that question might be used later. What makes centralized log management essential for modern SOC operation? See, we have talked about it previously in the yesterday's session when we were talking about SOC. I explained you different floors are there. So one security room is there. Why? Because it will be helpful to correlate with each other. The security guards would be able to correlate with each other, right? So what makes centralized log management essential for modern SOC operation? It enables correlation so that we can relate things with each other for analysis and faster incident response. Right? Good job. This one. And this is the reason I didn't answer the first question completely. Otherwise, you would have got the answer of this question also. Good one. And kindly use the chat option, guys. Do not use the mic, please. And let everyone answer the same. Here we are trying to investigate unauthorized file deletion, file changes, file modifications are being done. File integrity, monitoring, logs. Perfect. Here now we can try to answer this question. You suspect data exfiltration is there. Okay. Network logs show repeated outbound HTTP or HTTPS connection to unknown domains during off hours. What step do you take to confirm the threat and investigate further? What will you do? How to do all this thing in practical? So yes, we will require the practical. Like why sharks can also be looked out for, looking out for your traffic analysis in this one. And SIM solution you can use Splunk. It has a free trial, or Vazu is also there, which can be utilized in a way to do some things to analyze the logs. Okay, remember you were answering for the DNS in the previous questions. So since it is network logs for repeated outbound HTTPS domain, so we should look out for the DNS logs, right? Look out for any unusual domains connection. So we'll check the DNS logs. We see any unusual domain is there. For example, they make the subdomain or domain quite long. Something random thing you will see over there. Example.net, something like this. The domain name and like this. So look out for these things if it's present over there. Okay. Once here, or you can say correlate with the. We can correlate things with your proxy logs and firewall logs for any unusual traffic pattern, right? We can use I said Wireshark, so we can capture the entire full packet data. PCAP for payload inspection, right? So it's like we are looking for our tire tracks in the mud. You follow where they lead. So then when we got to know which endpoint is there, we can look out for the endpoint and investigate any files process execution that is causing it. Further process investigation. Absolutely. Right? Which process was executed, which was making the connection. Yes. Good job. Okay. Next bit is regarding threat intelligence. What do you mean by intelligence? That is my first question. We have things, guys, like when we talk about intelligence, many people use words. We have data, we have information, and we have another word which is intelligence. Anyone knows the difference? When we talk about data, data is something which is raw. Okay, like for example, what it is 9 today, uh, sorry 6. I'm writing something. So this is 6/5/7/5/2025, 8/5/2025, 9/5/2025, 10/5/2025, and 11/5/2025. By just looking at them, what do you think these things are? What it is? The things which you have just written: 5/5/2025, 6/5/2025, and so on. By just looking at them, what do you think these are? Not these, not logs, 100%. But yeah, just forget about the logs at the moment. What these things looks like to you? Simply, we'll see. These are dates. Okay, these are normal dates. Perfect. At the moment, I have no much information about them. Just the dates for me. So dates are compared as data, which is in a raw form. Okay. Now, when you process this data, you get information. Basically, right now we have no context when we talk about data. It is in a raw form. So these dates are having no context. So we process them. Okay. Then we got to know, okay, this is the month of May, year 2025, and this is the second week of it, in which this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you got to know this is my weekend. This is the weekend off. And Friday, maybe like a Good Friday or something, we have off on Friday as well, public holiday. So now you got context over here. Some informations are there. When you analyze that information, you get the intelligence. Like basically, you have decision making power. So now you can see like, okay, you have a long weekend. You can plan a trip, okay, with a friend's family, or you can do your pending work over here during this time period. So that decision making helps you to with intelligence. So threat intelligence works in the same way. It is a knowledge about any active threats or potential that helps organizations to prevent, detect, and respond to the cyber attacks. See, every country has their intelligence team, right? Every country has an intelligence team. What does that intelligence team does? And they're planning their strategies so that we can defend them before that thing can actually happens, right? That is what intelligence team does. So similarly, organizations have threat intelligence team which look out for the active attacks which are out there or possible attacks which might target their organizations, so they help in to prepare the defensive measures in order to respond against those attacks or not let the attack happens on the very first place. So if they got to know there's an um, group which is targeting financial industries a lot, so they will look out for that attacking group, learn about their malwares they are using, and feed those intelligence into the security solutions of the organization to stop that or prevent from that attack. Okay. And it is also like generally it is proactive but can be also helpful in terms of reactive basis as well. So for example, if I say we got to know that we have a web server or we have a server which is getting log from a client, you can say from a remote client, server is getting logs. That is just a data. Data tells that server is receiving connection request from the remote client or from the client. Here data states what it can tell you: the IP of the source and of the destination. That's it, nothing much, in a raw form. But when we process it, because we have no context over here, we got the information. We got to know that actually this server is facing, or yes, indeed it is getting, but it is getting multiple connection requests from different places, different IPs, which is making this server feeling a bit stressed, and its performance is also gradually decreasing. So by analyzing this information, okay, because we are getting a lot of connection requests, so it is getting stressed. A lot of connection requests are being made within short time period, due to which performance is decreasing of the server. So as per this information, when you analyze this, what intelligence do you get? What kind of an attack is happening over here? Server is there, server is receiving lots of connection requests at the short amount of time, due to which that server is feeling stressed and its performance is also decreasing. DDoS, distributed denial of service. So as per your previous experience, your company's records or incident playbook, we handle that attack, DOS attack, DDoS attack. Okay, so that's how your intelligence helped you to take care of it. So similarly, we go for different platforms. I'll just try to give you an idea about that later. So threat intelligence gives you the answers to the questions like who is attacking us, how they are doing it, what are they after, when they are likely to strike, what indicator of compromise we can watch for. IOC also we can capture. IOC means indicator of compromise. Indicator of compromise means if these things are present in your system, in your logs, that means you're already compromised. You're already compromised. Okay, so in your logs, if you see any IP, any domain name with which your system is interacting with, and this IP or domain name has already been part of any compromise before, any part of any breach, that means if you find these IPs or domain name in your logs, that means you are also compromised. The system is misbehaving now. These are indicator of compromise. So threat intelligence is nothing. It's just like weather forecasting for cyber threats. You cannot stop a storm, but knowing it's coming helps you to prepare. So it helps us to prevent the breaches by staying ahead of the known tactics. It supports incident response by identifying the patterns. It improves threat hunting. It helps us to prioritize patches and controls and all those things. So threat intelligence is evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanism, indicators, implications, and actionable device about existing or emerging cyber threats. So it is gathered, analyzed, and shared to help organization understand threats they face, prepare against them, detect them fast, and respond to them in a more effective manner. Okay. Source of threat intelligence, malware analysis reports are there. Yes. So reports from any malware samples or honeypots shows them how malware spread or its C2 servers, right? Indicator of compromises that can be there. Dark web monitoring. So monitoring criminal forums, marketplaces, or breach dumps. So you can see any leaked credentials over there. You can see a sale of 0 days or exploit kits and insider threads over there, right? So for example, a company may find employees' emails and password being sold from a previous phishing attack. That can be also seen. OSINT, open source intelligence. So free, publicly available threat intelligence you can gain from there. So you have a lot of tools for the same. Abuse.ch is there, used for malware trackers. Fish tank is there for phishing URLs. Alien Vault is there, gives you IOCs. Okay. GitHub IOCs is also there. These are pretty good platforms. Commercial threat feeds, yes. So it is paid, although, but curated intelligence from vendors. So vendors are there. Um, yeah, you can also add MSP. Um, Commercial would be like recorded. Future is there. FireEye. Now it is Trellix though, I guess. IBM, X-Force, Exchange. These are also there. Then you have government agencies like CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, CISA, advisories. These are also there. That is true. Um, so these agencies they release the information or intelligence about adversaries, threat bulletins, emergency patches, all those. And internal SOC incident response are also sources. So it can be helpful in terms of finding the past incident findings, patterns from previous attacks, common TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures which are used against your infrastructure, all those. Then we have role of threat intelligence. So it help us to improve the threat detection, quite obviously. Proactive defense and threat hunting, better incident response, vulnerability prioritization is also there. Help us to prioritize the vulnerabilities, risk management and strategic decision making, and third party or supply chain. This monitoring is also there in this one. Okay. So yeah, improved helpful for improved threat detection. IOCs can be fed into your SOC environment, as I mentioned before. Proactive threat defenses in threat hunting, right? So hunting for threats not which are not yet detected by the security tools. So it can be helpful, right? So better incident response. So it helps us to guide faster in terms of containment by providing context, like who is the threat actor, what tools they are using, what are they after, right? So they can prioritize the incidents based on threat severity and intent as well. Then vulnerability prioritization is also there, right? It maps newly discovered vulnerabilities to actively exploit campaigns, right? Which can helpful for vulnerability assessment for us, right? It can help us to patch the critical vulnerabilities before attackers can exploit them. Risk management and strategic decision making is also there. So it informs the CISO and leadership about business risks which are associated with the cyber threats, right? It helps us to allocate the security budgets and resources in a more effective manner. Third party supply chain risk monitoring is also there. So it helps us to track the threats, targeting vendors, partners, or suppliers. So these are role basically, how it is helpful. Apart from that, we have types of threat intelligence. We have strategic, tactical, operational, and technical. Simply see the ones over here, strategic and technical. Uh, these are long-term use for long-term use, but these informations are strategic is high level. This is low level. Okay, what it meant. Strategic is like where we define the strategies. It is consumed by your C-level executives, you can say, or higher executives. So it is all about like what's happening in the global threat landscape and how should we plan for it. So purpose is high level, long term, risk centric intelligence. So see your C suite, your CISO, risk manager, board level decision makers, they consume this kind of an intelligence. Okay. So which is used for business decisions, budgeting, long term security strategies like that. So for example, if there is any nation state which is targeting critical infrastructure in your country, right? Cybercrime trends which shows a rise in ransomware against healthcare in that way. So reports, executive briefings, annual risk assessment, these are the feeds for them. Tactical, on the other hand, they give the tactics, techniques, and procedures. Tactical, as I mentioned, tactic is the goal which you want to achieve. Technique is how you're going to achieve that method, and procedure is the step-by-step approach. What I meant with that is Tactic, for example, your goal is that you want to get the initial access into someone system. So you want to gain the initial access. That is your tactic. Technique would be how we can achieve that. Phishing email. So we can write phishing in the technique. Procedure would be like how you're going to do that, step by step approach. First, we'll gather the email ID, we'll collect the email ID, we'll gather the information about the target, gather the email ID, draft the phishing email, or attach the malwares in the phishing email, or create a website which looks like very similar so that we can gain the sensitive credentials and then send it and so on. So that will be part of a procedure, step by step approach. So when you're looking out for the TTP, that is a tactical, okay, for long term but low level information. So IT service administrator and SOC managers consume this. Where you can find the tactical information or intelligence, you can get it on MITRE attack framework. MITRE attack framework. Here you can get these intelligence. Okay. Operational is short term, high level, something which is currently happening. So we look out for, is there any active threat targeting us right now or not? So here purpose of this operation is like real time alerts about active threats or attacks. So security operations centers, incident response team, network defenders, these are our audience for the same, so that we can create a quick defensive actions and incident containment. So if there is any alert from ISAC, which shares the intelligence, or committed emergency response team for the government about any active phishing campaigns, any intelligence from other companies saying attackers are using a new exploit in the wild, like that. So you can look out for the bulletins, flash alerts, social media platforms for the same. Technical again is short term but low level, more core information. IOCs we are talking about. IOCs are nothing. These are like indicator of compromise, as I mentioned. So it gives you the specific IPs, file hashes, file signatures, domains, like that, which needs to be blocked by the organization. So it provides you the IOCs. So SOC analysts, your SIM engineers, firewall teams, they consume this kind of information, intelligence. Okay. So these things are feeded into your security tools for detection, alerting, and response purpose. Clear? So for example, this is Alien Vault. If I click on any one of them, for example, like this, you can see regarding this, we have 2000 indicator of compromise, which are including domain names, file hashes, URL, hostname, IPv4, and IPv6. So when these things are listed, that means these are part of an attack or some malicious operations. So what you need to do, if you think your organization is unsafe regarding these, you need to fill these things in your security solution to block these things, to block that IP, to block that domain name, everything. So you feed these intelligence IOCs into your security solutions of your organizations. Okay. Okay. So these are your threat intelligence platforms. Also, open source are there. We have paid ones as well. So yeah, but these things are there. Okay. So why threat intelligence platforms are needed? Security teams face too much threat data from various feeds, OSINT, commercial feeds, internal detection, which we were talking about, right? So without automation, manual threat analysis is slow, error prone, and overwhelming. So TIP streamline the data ingestion from multiple sources, correlation analysis, alert enrichment, and sharing intelligence across teams and partners. So TIP is important for that because too many feeds means too much data. So manual intelligence handling will be a problem. It can be slow, error prone, and inconsistent. So intelligence gets lost between silos or tools. Okay, so threat intelligence platforms help us in this way. So it's helpful in terms of ingestion. So it aggregate the data from multiple sources. For the correlation analysis also, it link different indicators to threat actors, malware families or TTPs. It is helpful for alert enrichment. So it add the context like this IP is part of a botnet, and this will be added to your SIM alerts. Then sharing is also there, like we distribute the intelligence to different teams, different tools, or even other organizations as well. Okay, so common platforms are there again: open source, commercial free recordings, instant data, pass SOC investigation, industries ISAC, information sharing analysis center is also there, right? So it's like you're sharing between the trusted partners within the same industry, and government advisories are also there, like a CISA alerts. Okay, so that would be it. So useful open sources are there: MISP, open source, the Hive is open source, OpenCTI AT, Maltego is also quite important. OTX I just showed you, Alien Vault just I showed you. For IOC that is OTX, Maltego, AT, OpenCTI, Hive, and MISP as well. So that will be for threat intelligence. Okay, just quick answers, quick question answers. First one, which of the best describe threat intelligence?
B.
The answer is B. This one, read the question very carefully. Which type of threat intelligence include real-time indicators like malicious IPs, file hashes, domains, IOC we are talking about, indicator of compromise. What that would be? Once again, I'm showing you the image here. IOC, not TTP. It will be your C, technical threat intelligence. One last question: which of these tools is an open source threat intelligence platform? It would be B, which is MISP.